Oh, I envy all of you.
Ram clap. Suhrith clap. Azeem, use both your hands and clap.
Okay, let me try. Don't work.
That's,
Wait, okay.
that's your cold open. We got our cold open. Yes. Oh, what a genius.
Wait, wait. Let me actually try to get a clap though.
Hi, hello, I'm SA, and this is The Tale of Two Halves, a football podcast that aims to be fun and factual but falls short of both by a long distance, and we're very proud of it. That's how we do it. But speaking of falling short of a lot of things, this podcast has faced a lot of challenges in the last few weeks of us figuring this out. And probably the biggest one that we've faced so far was last Saturday, because I had the dilemma that I've never had before, which is on a Saturday evening, I had to choose between a Leeds United game and a CSK game. Now, it's not often that I can say I've been there before, but I think one of the biggest rewards of Leeds United getting promoted was not the $1 billion of money that we all end up getting. I think it was the fact that I could sit and watch my favorite team on TV for a change. I think that's why I was waiting all this while. And then imagine on a Saturday being relegated to your bedroom, to your laptop, because your friends come home and took over your living room and wanted to watch IPL there. India, I tell you, some things just don't change. But the good news though, Leeds won, CSK won, Manchester United won, Crystal Palace 3. Boom. That's how we do it, yo. That is how we do it. Do not shake your head in disapproval of the joke. It's a fantastic joke. Because Manchester United played their first game last weekend and lost. And that was the biggest bright side and the best thing of last weekend. And in fact, today morning, I read something super interesting on Twitter from the Manchester Evening News, where they spoke of how apparently Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is being replaced by one Mr. Marcelo Bielsa. And to all the lovely people who are equally excited about that news, in your face, it's not happening. Get the hell out of here. What's wrong with you, da? Please, this is extremely fun to see that Man U are now, after Leeds' managers, I'm so happy this is happening. Couldn't happen to a nicer club. We'll be talking about that and a lot more because we'll have the Chelsea-Liverpool game to talk about. We have last week's fantasy picks that some of us completely fucked up to talk about. And most importantly, we do have the editorial segment today, which is about Manchester United, considering how heavily I've led into this segment with that. So let me introduce the guests for this show. We have not one, but two Manchester United fans in our show today. So at first, a friend of mine from school, and High Court lawyer, and also a Manchester United fan. Welcome to the show, Mr. Suhrith Parthasarathy.
I am coughing. I've lost my voice a bit, but I think there's nothing to worry. So my usual sonorous voice isn't there today, but I'll do my best, I say.
Thank you. And of course, up next is that it's probably one of the coolest things on Twitter that I've been introduced to in the last few years. Someone who spots talents way before that most of us could. And he makes you look good in your WhatsApp groups where you go and be like, hey, Tariq Lamptey is actually a good player. You know, I saw this coming years ago. And you all know where you got your source from. It's from a good friend of mine, Mr. Srinivas. Welcome to the show.
You are awfully kind with every single introduction you've given me. But I'll take worse. It. Thank you.
And last but not the least, the guy who's responsible for me starting this podcast. You know why? Not because he motivated me on things, because he kept inviting me to his podcast every other time, and I got so sick and tired of it. How do I tell Azeem I'm busy? I'm like, bro, I have a podcast. I'm so sorry. There's conflict of interest. But again, yet another nice comedian to feature on a podcast. What's with nice comedians and just nice people being Manchester United fans? I just hate it. Azeem Banatwalla, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you so much, lads. So let's get quickly into the first segment where we quickly go through the results of last weekend in this fantastic idea called Random People Reading Results.
Fulham 0, Arsenal 3, Crystal Palace 1, Southampton 0, Liverpool 4, Leeds United 3, West Ham 0, Newcastle 2, West Brom 0, Leicester City 3, Tottenham 0, Juventus 1, Sheffield United 0, Wolves 2, Brighton 1, Chelsea 3.
Okay, so game week 2, some super action, lots of goals. Quickly, I'm going to get this off the bat. Most surprising result and most disappointing result. Go for it, Ram.
Well, most surprising result for me has to be Crystal Palace beating Manchester United, although it was also the result that I was happiest about. And the most disappointing result is probably
Same
Chelsea
pinch.
0 Liverpool 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the most surprising result for me was probably Spurs 5, Southampton 2. I mean, to see Mourinho's side score 5 goals, I think that comes with a bit of surprise. Most disappointing result, I think it's pretty obvious. Man United losing to Crystal Palace. I didn't find it as surprising. I did think that there was every chance that they might stumble at the opening. So it wasn't especially surprising, but hugely disappointing all the same.
Why is it disappointing? Last season also it happened. Why you But anyways, that's a different day altogether. It's just me poking fun. Azeem Banatwalla, do you have a different answer, please?
So I was not at all surprised by United losing to Crystal Palace. I completely expected them to. So the most surprising result for me was Brighton beating Newcastle 3-0 at home. And at Newcastle's home. And the most disappointing result was Liverpool beating Chelsea.
That's it. Spoken like a true Manchester United fan there. Absolutely not disappointed.
I don't I have reached a level of zen now. I put a background of a car in Hindustani Bhav now when I talk about Manchester United. Okay, it's reached that level.
So let's just get it out of the system, guys. Let's talk about that match first. Manchester United versus Crystal Palace. Of course, I had the pleasure of watching it, but I'm not going to give you anything on it because I have two of you to take the lead on those things. But let's not get into Woodward at all because I know Suhrith has a lot to say about Woodward much later. But let's start with the goals. What did you make of the goals? Because I see if there's anything that I'm noticing on social media when it comes to the Manchester United community, there's just so many fingers being pointed. Right now, I don't understand who's to blame even for the goals. There's like 20,000 answers. So please feel free. What happened to the goals?
Okay, so let me answer that. So the thing is, we have so the biggest problem Manchester United obviously is defensively amongst the other problems that we have. We have two centre halves, Maguire and Lindelof, who have no pace, either of them. And Lindelof is completely lacking confidence. Like if you look at the 3 goals this season and the 2 goals we conceded against Sevilla in the Europa League semi-final. All 5 of them involved Lindelof making some kind of error or giving away a penalty or whatever it was. I think he's a guy who's shorn of confidence. I think he's lacking a partner that he's entirely compatible with. And also, usually he's bailed out by the fact that he has Aaron Wan-Bissaka on that flank. But he didn't have that happening. Luke Shaw on his own, like we've made this joke before, is that Luke Shaw does not really have a brain of his own. He needs to be told what he has to do every time he goes up and down the pitch. And Mourinho has said this himself. Like he had thrown Luke Shaw on for one game. And they said, hey, Luke Shaw had a good game today. And he was like, no, I had a good game today because I was telling Luke Shaw what to do. So defensively, it's a big problem because none of our, I genuinely expect to see Bailly starting the next game alongside Maguire because he's the only centre half we have who has any kind of pace outside of Axel Tuanzebe, who is forever injured. So defensively, lots and lots of problems.
So you don't blame Lindelof for the goals then?
Of course I do.
You don't? I'm sorry?
Of course I do. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
I mean, Lindelof was individually culpable in a lot of it. Like he should not have. Actually, all 3 goals Lindelof had. Literally he had a hand in some cases. But you look at the. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, if you look at the first goal, that was again a cross that should easily have been stopped. He should have put in the tackle there and conceded the corner or throw, and he didn't do that. For the second goal, for the penalty, he got nutmegged very easily by Jordan Ayew, which then put him in the position where he ended up handballing it. And the third goal again didn't get tight enough to Zaha, didn't put the tackle in, bumbled on the ball. So basically, all 3 goals were because of him. So there's no making apologies for Lindelof in this game.
Okay, then Suhrith, I have to ask you this.
As far as I'm concerned, I mean, Lindelof was clearly culpable as he said, in a sense, for all 3 goals. I mean, maybe the penalty was harsh, but it's the same with the Leeds United penalty the other day. This was even harsher, but I'm not going to blame the referee for this or VAR for this. I mean, ultimately, it was a performance that didn't deserve, United really didn't deserve to get anything out of it. But as much as we look at the defense, I mean, Pogba, again, incredibly disappointing. Bruno Fernandes, okay, he's just had another child. He's coming back into the team. It's and again, one other factor that we might have to consider is that United haven't had a pre-season at all. And this is a point that Solskjaer made at the end of the game, where he said that Crystal Palace have played 3 friendlies before this. United have had no friendlies. I mean, 1 friendly against Aston Villa. And I've had almost all of them sort of getting into the first 11 almost directly with hardly any preparation. So I can kind of see some mitigating factors for this loss, but one could really see it coming from a distance. It was always on the cards. I wouldn't go with Bai, but neither would I stick with Lindelof. I mean, I'd much rather go with Ted and Mengi, who's been integrated into the first team squad. Give him a go, because it can't get worse than this. It really can't.
We have a data analyst there waiting to get at some of your comments, but I'll give you a chance, Ram. Before I move on from the match, there's just one small thing. I see a lot of people blaming Daniel James, and today I also read that Leeds United have stepped up their interest in Daniel James for about 15 million.
Please,
Suhrith and Azeem, would you give us for 15?
Take. For 5, I'll give you.
5 million.
Wow, Ram, look at the disdain
Oh
that
my
they
God.
have towards. He could have just come peacefully to us last January.
I know.
Why go to this useless place? Look at this, but we'll take him still.
Look,
Thank you.
performing at Old Trafford, the kind of stage that it offers, it's a different pressure. I mean, possibly performing at Ellen Road for Leeds United, not
I'm
the hardest.
sure right now the atmosphere is the same as it was with your prawn sandwich brigade and 0 crowd right now. It's all the same. So atmosphere can't be the difference maker. Sure, managers maybe. But okay, fine. We'll take him. Thank you for Daniel James. We'll move on to the next big game of the weekend. It's Chelsea and Liverpool. So many talking points. It's going to be very hard. I'm just going to try and keep it to interesting things. For example, Chelsea did not, there's a point which is very valid. Chelsea did not exploit Werner's runs. And I noticed that he was more on the left side than up center, which was how we saw him against Brighton though. Ram?
Well, I was expecting Werner to start up front, but then the setup kind of makes sense if you think about the fact that Werner can exploit a lot of space out wide. I mean, we know how Alexander-Arnold doesn't like to be attacked into space behind him, and he does leave a lot of space because he goes forward a lot. So technically, yeah, that works, and you kind of need a focal point-ish player up front. So that's why playing Havertz makes sense. But in the end, they kind of just got stuck between being attacking and being pragmatic. It was a different approach from what Lampard usually takes against Liverpool, because usually he tries to match them up, but this time he opted for some pragmatism for some reason. So
I know why. I think he was just copying for a change. He was spying on Bielsa last weekend because he saw how Jack Harrison exploited that space behind Gomez in the right side. So he played Werner there and tried to go behind.
Sure, he tried, but they didn't do it. They didn't execute. If that was a plan, they didn't execute it, because I saw Werner making a lot of runs and Marcos Alonso coming to the halfway line and then turning back and passing to one of the centre backs. So that happened way too often, whether it was Alonso or whether it was Jorginho. Kovacic seemed to be the only press-resistant player. So, yeah, I feel as if Chelsea just kind of put on a pretty average display while restricting Liverpool to long shots in the first half as well. So it could have gone like either way. But then I feel as if the red card kind of swung the flow of the game. Although I know Sir doesn't seem to be agreeing with me.
I mean, I thought the goal was coming even before the red card. Liverpool were all over Chelsea for the sort of 10-minute period then, and I know that it's about like maintaining pressure, etc. But this Chelsea defense with Kepa, I wouldn't have seen them kind of sit back and really absorb the pressure. I mean, I know long shots, but then long shots against Kepa. So, I mean, at some point of time, there's going to be a goal that was coming, and I really didn't see Chelsea getting anything out of this, especially after I saw the way they set up the first 10-15 minutes. There was almost nothing on offer for them going forward. There was nothing on the break. Fabinho did a fantastic job filling in at centre-back. He just sort of able to quell a lot of this danger and kind of snip it at its heels very quickly.
Now that's something, just to bring up Fabinho, sorry Suhrith, because it's something I've been wanting the whole day. I've been discussing with a bunch of friends. I thought I'll ask you three, if any of you could fill me in on this. Has he played centre-back for Brazil and the other clubs before? Or is it something that Klopp has been... Because I know Klopp has been playing him there in cup games, mixing and matching.
At Monaco, I think he played at full-back, right? Full-back often. Yeah. And in central midfield. And Klopp is, I think until now, only really used him at centre-back when one of the centre-backs has had to go off injured. This is the first time I think...
The cup games.
He started the cup games.
Yeah. It's quite easy thrown there.
In the
because
league,
he looked extremely comfortable. I was genuinely surprised how easy he made it look, because if any point had to be thrown at Liverpool this year, it was, Joe Gomez is now the weak link, especially having seen what Jack Harrison did. But what's a weak link now?
Weak link for Liverpool, that's a hard one to really see. In midfield, they've strengthened now, right? You would have thought central midfield was probably one area where they needed somebody who could keep the ball when, try and play a different kind of football. Now they have Thiago. And
that's cheat code, man.
Yeah, and I think the one possible area where they were a bit weak was in reserve for the front three, where you just had Origi. But now again, they've filled that up as well with Diogo Jota. So they're a brilliantly run club. You have to say they're really, really well run.
Like, when was the first time we heard about that? Sorry, Azeem, go on.
No, I think the way to actually get something out of Liverpool or get any change out of them is to actually attack them, like to actually really take the game to them.
Definitely.
And press them, like do what they do to them. And we saw that to an extent with Leeds, right? Where you got the 3 goals against them. Unlucky in the end to lose 4-3.
What a classy Manchester United fan. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. Go on. It's okay. See, I bitch about my own club more than I bitch about other clubs, so it's fine. But
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would say it's like we've seen that with like even the one, I think Manchester United were one of the few clubs that managed to take a point off Liverpool last season. And that happened with them in that first half, like properly blitzing Liverpool. And then eventually, I think everyone in United just got confused by the fact that he threw Lallana on. And we're like, wait, you're putting Lallana on when you're 1-0 down and then Lallana scored. So that's pretty much how they got the draw out of that game.
And in fact, I think this doesn't get mentioned enough. I'll probably close the Chelsea-Liverpool thing with Thiago. Apart from the technical brilliance and all those things, I think he actually might end up making them defensively better. Not directly, because he's not, say, your Fabinho kind of, physical central midfielder out there. But having said that, just the stat that I saw today morning about the 26 progressive passes that Henderson had in the first half, and then this man had 76 or something, Ram? I'm not sure. Just in one half, that tells you
a record or something.
Yeah, but it is, and the reason I bring that up is 76 progressive passes. It tells you one thing: is actually a defensive trait more than anything. In the simple sense, it'll peg the other team to a place where you're never going to feel the pressure if one central midfielder is constantly attacking with intent once he has the ball. That's actually the best way to defend, which is to attack with intent and put them on the back foot. That's pretty much how Bielsa does this stuff. So
Bielsa disciple.
So that's quite a thing. Thiago, it might not get said enough, will make them defensively better. Southampton and Tottenham, what a match! Who would have thought? Who would have thought a Mourinho team would do this? What was Southampton up to tactically to enable Kane to suddenly look like Kevin De Bruyne? With every pause of his, Kane was looking like some record he has, right? About some 4 assists is maximum number of assists any striker has had, or something of the sort.
Well, I think an incredibly high line, right? The Saints maintained. And with those defenders, I'm not sure it was the brightest of ideas. I really like Hasenhüttl. I mentioned this last week as well. I think he's a fantastic coach and a really good tactical thinker. But playing that high line against Spurs, and when you don't take your chances, Che Adams with that chance just before Spurs scored their second goal, that kind of really crushed them. And credit to Spurs as well. They were incredibly clinical. Each of those passes from Kane were phenomenal. Balls over the top or balls around the curve around the defenders, and Son is always amazing when he gets into those positions. I think he's still somewhat an underrated player. I think he's sort of one of the best in his positions in the league, and able to make those diagonal runs from out to in, the kind that Freddie Ljungberg used to make back in the day for Arsenal, from out to in diagonal, and where Perez used to find him. So if he has somebody from deep who can find him with those kind of when he makes those kind of runs, then he's pretty unerring with his finishing. So credit to Spurs, but it was a hugely surprising result.
Of course, what got overlooked in this whole thing was the very fact that if this had not been a 5-2 win, I'm pretty sure we'd all be sitting here and talking about what Mourinho did with the Dele Alli. Because thanks to Amazon Prime, we know what Ferguson told Mourinho about Dele Alli, about how if there's any person in this world you should sign, it's Dele Alli. He's the next big thing, blah, blah, blah. And he's also gone on record on Amazon Prime saying he's a lazy player. We need to get him going. This would be the talking point. In fact, he's been left out of the squad in the Europa League game. He's been left out of this one as well. Mourinho is giving the usual thing of there are 8 players who are out of the squad. I bet I can't name all 8. I can only name Dele Alli, who's the highest profile one there. But his defense has always been, I have Steven Bergwijn, I have Lamela. When you choose Lamela ahead of Dele Alli and you make a point of it, Lamela has been there since Bale left. It's almost like I'm getting bored. So it's a quite a thing. I'm looking forward to seeing where Dele Alli is going. I heard a point from Danny Murphy on Match of the Day where he mentioned maybe he should try changing his position. Maybe number 10 is no longer played the way that he's used to. Who knows? But just to add to the point that Azeem brought up about Luke Shaw's...
I just had one thing to add to that, which is that Fabrizio Romano has actually tweeted today that Dele Alli has actually been offered to several clubs in the last 24 hours by Mourinho. Also, I think that this is what Mourinho said in the documentary about Ferguson told me to sign Dele Alli. I don't think Ferguson told him. I think this is just a lie he has concocted so that Manchester United pay some 60 million and try to buy Dele Alli. Because Solskjaer
but why do you need one?
No, because Solskjaer is a student of Ferguson, right? So he'll be like, if Ferguson has said, then I have to buy him. This entire Amazon Prime documentary has been made so that United buy Dele Alli for stupid money.
Azeem, it's so funny you brought up that Luke Shaw point about how Mourinho said, I only told him to play this way. I took all credit. And in typical manner in this match also, I don't know if you guys saw that moment where he interrupted Son's man of the match interview and said, man of the match, Harry Kane. I'm like, who asked you, bro? Nobody asked you. And Mourinho has to do that. But anyways, moving on to Everton versus West Brom. Again, what is this high scoring weekend? I don't understand. James Rodriguez is already the hype was there. Now you make Everton and Ancelotti score 5 goals. Everybody's going to be you all hyped up about it. The first thing I wanted to ask in that match, if any of you saw any similarities with respect to the way he used James as literally like a central attacking midfielder, but who's defensively out of position, the right winger who has to pick up the fullback, but plays into the center whenever they have the ball, to the AC Milan sides of Ancelotti, because I'm sure that's where he's taking all this from.
I'm not sure if there are necessarily similarities with the Milan side, but it is a lopsided formation at some levels because James flits in. Seamus Coleman is not as aggressive or as sort of, laissez-faire as possibly Digne is on the other side, where Richarlison stays out, but Digne also bombs down, up and down, and Richarlison as well cuts in. But James, it does sort of add to the numbers in the midfield, but what a player. I mean, to think that he couldn't possibly do it in England or whatever it is that people thought. I mean, it took him all of, I think, 2 minutes to show that he could cut it in England. I mean, of course, time will tell in terms of whether he has the fitness, has the ability to carry on through the course of the entire season. But just to watch him on the ball, to see him play those diagonal balls out to Digne, to see him, take some of the strikes on that he has, just an astoundingly brilliant performance.
I think the fitness part of it would not be an issue as long as the manager is Ancelotti, because I was reading this stat about the number of sprints that Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and then James is zero sprints the whole game. So I'm sure Ozil must be looking at that stat saying, see, you don't need to sprint, bro. But that's only because Ancelotti has 3 workhorses behind him doing all the dog's work and filling in in a tactically really aware way. Because I was just observing where are the places that James is allowed to go and what does he do once they have to defend. It was quite interesting to see. And another quote I wanted to, and of course, James' icing on the cake was not the assist and all the good touch. I thought the icing on the cake that James can crack it in the Premier League was when he fell down for a nice slap on the cheek and rolled around like a proper Colombian. That was like, welcome to the Premier League, bro. That was pakka. No, just to see him do that. Yes, it's either it's Madrid roots or the South American roots. Either way, we need that drama. I've missed that twirling and jumping and all. But the other quote of Ancelotti, which is quite interesting, was Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored of his first touch in all 3 goals. And that's something he said post-match about how no striker should ever take more than a touch to score a goal. That he says good strikers should finish with the first touch. And he went on to give a super cool stat about how he managed a striker called Inzaghi, who out of the 300-odd goals that he scored, 210 were first touch. So I was like, Inzaghi. Why didn't social media take up this quote in comparison and go all crazy? How can you compare Dominic Calvert-Lewin to Inzaghi? Well, let's not compare. Let's move to Newcastle and Brighton, because there's just one reason I'm talking about this match. Otherwise, it's such a boring match. We only talk about the top 6 here, remember? But no, there's one reason, because I now see every football fan out there saying, hey, Tariq Lamptey, bro, I called it, bro. I called it. But I'm saying, bitch, please, let's talk to the man who called it before you all called it. Ram, I know he's your favorite player. I know some of them are even saying that he has a bigger ceiling than Reece James. That's one hell of a statement, because Reece James, what a player that guy is. So go for it, Ram. Tell us all about Tariq Lamptey.
Tariq Lamptey was from his time playing for the Chelsea under-18s and 23s. He was evident as someone with very gifted with exceptional physical traits in terms of his speed and acceleration. And he's also a hugely technical player. So it kind of made him the attraction of every game he was playing at youth level. So the question was always, how will he step up to the senior game? So, I mean, some players struggle with it. But then some players who are of that physical stature manage to adapt somehow. I mean, Rico Henry is doing it in the championship. He'll probably step up at some point. And I think Lamptey is one of those guys because of the very fact that he has blistering pace. He's probably the most likely to take to the Premier League in a side that is able to let him do what he does best. And I think that's what Brighton did very smartly, in the sense that Lamptey was out of contract, basically, and this summer. He had 6 months left on his deal in January when they signed him. And
that's what, 1.5 million? How much did they pay?
You let him go for, I think, somewhere around 2 million or such.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. 2 with 4 add-ons. And
wow.
A lot of clubs, I know that a lot of clubs were after him. And he was on the, he was on the lips of literally every recruitment department there was in the championship. But then for a Premier League side to take him and immediately throw him into the first team picture takes courage. And it takes a system that lets him do what he wants. It needs adequate protection with the right back.
That's my next thing to you, Ram. Which is, do you think he's protected by the 3 centre-back system, though?
Yes.
Do you think is he good enough to play on a 4?
Well, I do think he is, but maybe not immediately. And that's why I think it's best that he's been eased in a 3-5-2 that they play, given that he has the protection of the right-sided centre-back. At the moment is Ben White, if I'm not wrong. And also, Bissouma also drops towards the right to cover for him, which also helps. So positionally, he's covered. Aerially, he has assistance as well. And he's also a very tenacious player in duels. He's not going to back down because he's obviously going into a mismatch based on physicality. He actually has a very good leap as well. And this was on evidence against Newcastle too. So yeah, he's just playing in a setup that gives him adequate protection and lets him run into space and run at players with minimal consequences of turnovers. So yeah, it's beautiful to watch, isn't it? That's probably like the best half an hour I've seen from a player that young.
Yeah, it was just like the whole footballing world were waking up to this kid, having so much fun. And all my WhatsApp groups are exploding about this kid and how FIFA's new edition is coming, and they're all like, we wonder what his rating is going to be, what his stats are going to be like. So yeah, a lot to look forward to. And I know there's a lot to talk more about Brighton as well, being a club that does so well in terms of the organization, the structure, and the kind of scouting that they've done to bring them up to this place. It's for a different day. Probably, Ram, I'll let you even you should probably do an editorial on that. And there's so much to get into it. But last game of this, before we move to the next segment, of course, I wanted to keep the last game as the Leeds versus Fulham because narcissism can wait till the end. And wow, what a match! Let me take you guys through the salient features of this match, because Rodrigo's first start, not by intention but by accident, because Pablo Hernandez picked up an injury in the warm-up, and Rodrigo's versatility allows him to play number 10, the left and the right or up front. And I was really looking forward, and what stood out was the very fact that what we already know about the Bielsa's team. I don't know if people are aware of this. Rodrigo was subbed off at halftime. So we only speak of the first start, but nobody actually speaks of what happened in the match. He did not fit in at all. And he doesn't fit in simply because you can't come and hit the Bielsa team. Like, you can't hit the ground running like that with the Bielsa team. You could see, I've never seen this team ever point fingers and call each other out in terms of teammates. They stick to each other so much, the Bielsa squad. But Rodrigo got called out around the 40th minute and the 35th minute by other teammates, because man-to-man marking is something that we do, right? And he was so off the pace, he couldn't catch up. You could see the players were running past him, and Jack Harrison or Dallas had to point and say, take him. And I could see that, and I could tell, wait, this has never happened. And then when I saw him get subbed off, that tells me Bielsa's Bible is real. You have to read, you have to swear by it, you have to pass all those tests to actually make it. It doesn't matter if you start for Spain, it doesn't matter if we paid 30 million for you. And that did well, to be perfectly honest. Removing him was great. With respect to the match, Patrick Bamford is doing great, guys. Let me give you context for those of you who are going to follow the Bamford story from now to the end of the season. Bamford was the player that all Leeds fans, including me, wanted out so badly. Why? Because he used to do everything that Bielsa asked for him except scoring goals. And we used to ask why. Can't we get a better striker who can finish the 20 chances he received in the championship? And here he is in the Premier League, receiving just one or two, and even sprinting past players. I've never seen him do this. Rodrigo is going to take a long time to get him out of the system, because he's not only is he Bielsa's pet, he's also in the form of his life. He's playing fantastic football.
Sometimes I say it's also about the positions that players get into. I mean, if he's sort of finding himself at the back of that many chances, it also probably means that he's doing a lot right in terms of movement.
True.
Which some other strikers might not. It used to be the same with Andy Cole back at United many years ago, where he'd need like 10 chances to score one goal, but it also meant that he was sort of getting into those positions perhaps more than some.
No, for sure. The criticism is never with Bamford. It's never about the work rate. That's something. If Bielsa is picking you, your work rate is there. Nobody can ever question that. But of course, the efficiency, considering the chances created. But now he's in the form of his life. It's great. I couldn't complain. Fantastic game. We dominated. Scott Parker suddenly in the second half, midway through the second half, told his players, "Don't be so nice to Leeds. Be some dirty, so and so's." And suddenly they switched and started beating the hell out of us in all the press. And that's how they got the 2 goals. So here's a beautiful way in which that I saw Scott Parker actually counter the Bielsa press. The way to counter the Bielsa press is to have players who can not only quickly turn oncoming the press from the opponents, also have the ability to drive straight. Because if you drive straight at a team that's doing man-to-man marking, they have to make a decision. They can no longer stick by the rules of, hey, that's your man, that's mine. Because somebody has just disrupted your system. That's something, I forget his name, Ram, I'm sure you know what, Anguissa. Yeah, that's something that central midfielder, Fulham's new signing, did very, very well. And that scared the shit out of us. But the scoreline does not reflect the truth. We had a great time. But we are scoring a lot of goals. Ram, are we a leaky team? I don't think so, but I'd rather let you make that point.
I think where your focus should actually be is how at the rate at which Leeds are scoring. Because last season in the Championship, you saw Leeds dominate teams to infinity and not come away with a goal tally that was, commensurate to that. But here you're looking at Leeds taking, 10 shots and scoring 4 of them. That is an unbelievably high conversion rate. And the same story was against Liverpool as well, where the shot count was actually quite low, but their efficiency was amazing. And you look at the type of positions from which, Helder Costa scored and Bamford scored. These are actually not very favorable angles to score from. Usually you're thinking like chances more towards the center, or statistically also they are more likely to go in. So I feel as if Leeds may not be posting these box office scores for very long. But they're definitely doing something right in terms of the overall dominance that they have in the final third and making their way into the final third of the opponent. That is there. But, maybe the shot count needs to improve because the conversion rate will not remain this high.
That's true. And that'll happen when our creative players start coming back. We need reinforcements there. But a definite problem that we have from last season that is continued now is set pieces. Conceded again. We conceded 2 many last time, and for some reason it's something we've not been able to address at all. But let's talk about Fulham though. I dead certain for relegation, but Mitrovic is back scoring. That's the only upside. But I just don't see how they're going to make it. I mean, it's just happy to see them back and go back down again. None of their except Anguissa and Tete, right? That's their right back. Yeah. Those are the 2 new signings that started. But that's that. I'm very happy Fulham gave us the 3 points that they usually give us every year in the Championship as well. Thank you so much, all the Fulham fans watching this. With that, we shall move to the editorial part of this segment, ladies and gentlemen. All right, this is the part of the show where one of us takes a little time to talk about a subject from the EPL that is very close to our hearts. So this time I've had the pleasure of talking about this one subject that's extremely close to my heart, the decline of Manchester United. And I thought, who better than ask my good friend Suhrith to give us a lowdown on what is probably the best time I've been having in football. And I'm sure a lot of Manchester United fans would also love to hear more about this. Suhrith, over to you.
Yeah, so let me start by making a bit of an admission. This has obviously been clear to all of you already. This segment is titled as an editorial, but that I don't think possibly makes it a purely objective endeavor. Given that last week we had SA speak about Leeds United, this week you'll have me speaking about Leeds' arch rivals, Manchester United. Of course, a number of clubs consider Man United to be their arch rivals, but we'll leave that discussion for another day. So here, anyway, is my admission. I've long been a fan, a fervid one at that, of Manchester United. It's difficult to perhaps isolate the exact moment when Man United might have truly captured my imagination. The one match that might have turned me into a fan. I mean, it's more likely a product of beginning to watch them in the mid to late 1990s, of being enamored by the genius without necessarily at the time understanding its entire range, of Eric Cantona, and of finding escape in the stories from commentators, especially of the romance in Manchester United, of a club marked by both tragedy and unmitigated euphoria. So for the best part of nearly 2 decades, Man United was defined by victories, right? By titles, by the hatred that they evoked in seemingly everyone who's not a fan of the club, the anyone but United brigade. But since the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson in 2013, the club hasn't won a league title. It hasn't so much as come close to winning. This decline, though, didn't begin necessarily with Ferguson's retirement. I think we know that much by now. It began with the takeover by the Glazers, who've taken more money out of the club than they've put back into it. I mean, given how much Chelsea and Manchester City were investing, it's by now, I think, quite apparent that Ferguson was really papering over some cracks. That he won the title in 2012-13, his last season with the squad that he had, I think, is something of a miracle. Tom cleverly started 18 league matches that year. Ashley Young started 17 matches. Rafael and Valencia started more than 20 matches each. On the other hand, Vidic started only 18. Scholes, who'd come out of retirement the previous season, he started just 8 games. Giggs began 12. And I think those numbers tell a story. Ferguson wanted Rooney out at the end of that season. He had arranged for that. He'd arranged for the signing of Thiago Alcantara. But in came Moyes, who was obviously Ferguson's choice, but it proved an unmitigated disaster. The Thiago signing was shelved. Rooney was kept on. The midfield, which desperately needed strengthening, was left unattended to, with only Fellaini coming in. And let's not even get into how Fellaini must be regarded possibly as the antithesis of what a midfielder ought to do in a Man United shirt. So that decline, which began with Moyes, it's been quelled from time to time, but it's never really gone away. Replacement managers have been chosen with little to no new due diligence. Managers, once they've come in, haven't been given the players they wanted. I mean, this is not to suggest that money hasn't been spent. Money has been burnt at times. It's just that everything's happened with zero vision. The owners seem to have no conception of exactly what they want from Man United as a football team on the pitch. Do they want them to play a certain kind of football? Because if they did have a vision, they try and implement that by putting in place the right structure, by getting a director of football. And take even the highly commercialized operations of the Red Bull sporting teams, of RB Leipzig, for example. They have the virtuoso brilliance of Ralph Ragnick working as a sporting director, of implementing a certain vision. But at United, nada. They go out of the Champions League 1 year, they get a new manager in. They spend money, that manager improves them. Then again, the year after that, they don't invest. And this cycle is repeated ad nauseum. This isn't to suggest that the defeat to Palace on Saturday owed only to the lack of investment. There were other factors. United didn't have much of a pre-season compared to Palace, and players haven't yet caught up to speed. But well, it's still a chastening defeat, wasn't it? So we got to look at Solskjaer's performance too, to an extent. But ultimately, though, the club's failure to get a director of football in, to continue operating with Ed Woodward at the helm, it's been an embarrassment. I mean, I, for one, can't see how it's good for business either. But well, there we are. I think it's already late. But if United don't reinforce the squad between now and 5th October, they'll struggle to finish in the top 4. They'll be in a battle for the top 6. They need, at the minimum, a player who can play out on the wing and the right, a centre-back to replace Lindelof, a left-back. I think that has to be the bare minimum. But as fans, we all live in hope. So let's see.
Wonderful. Then I enjoyed this so much more than my lead piece. It just felt so nice from last week. Thanks so much, Suhrith. But I'll go to Azeem with this, because I'm going to reduce my time in this editorial. I want to hear Azeem's thoughts on something that Suhrith made very clear: the reluctance to go for a director of football. I've read this so many times about your club, but I've never understood why. I'm sure you paid a lot of thought to it. Why so? What do you think is stopping you guys from going for what about that role probably pisses off the Glazers?
I don't know. I think it's just the fact that we have to pay one more salary and they don't want to spend any more money in the club. I mean, there's no rational reason that you can think of, honestly, for a club of United stature to not, and a club that has been so directionless like United in terms of both signings and vision and picking managers, that you would not have a director of football up till now. There was talk of various different people coming in, like Edwin van der Sar, etc., etc., and looking at the kind of job that Van der Sar did at Ajax, he would have been a good fit. But yeah, I don't see it at all. I don't understand why it's not happening.
The insight was superb. I'm glad it is not all Scholz's fault. I'm glad there's a lot more deeper problems there, which means it's going to take a lot more time. So take your own time. Peace out, relax. And with that, we shall move on to the next segment. Okay, so this is the segment where we'll be making predictions about next week's fixtures. And if you can channel your inner Paul the Octopus and make 4 out of 4 predictions right, then you will be getting the bounty. But unfortunately, last week did not go down too well for the panelists who participated. Some of us are here because we asked which player would complete the most number of passes. Rodri was a popular prediction, but he hasn't played yet this week. But we're recording this on Monday. But so far, it's Michael Keane with 134 passes. Let's see how Rodri does tonight. Which team will have most headers, we'd asked. And Liverpool, Burnley, Fulham and Arsenal each scored a goal with a header. So anyone who predicted any of these teams would have gotten it right. But we predicted Everton, Brighton, Sheffield and Leeds. Of course, I'm predicting Leeds for everything. So clearly we're not winning the bounty this week. And last but not least, we wanted to predict which team will drop the most places in the standings. And all of us unanimously and shamelessly said Crystal Palace. And we all know what happened to that game. The team that dropped the most, though, was Newcastle. So we should have thought it through. And damn. And finally, the highest scoring game, there's a 3-way tie. Everton versus West Brom 5-2. Southampton versus Tottenham 2-5. And Leeds versus Fulham 4-3. I predicted Leeds Fulham would be the highest scoring match. I got half of it right. I get 1 point. I'm the host. I make the rules. But yeah, I didn't score the part of 3 goals that Fulham scored. Anyways, so this is how it works, guys. So let's, nobody's getting the bounty. Nobody got 4 out of 4 right. So moving on, next week, the bounty is now at 1,000 rupees. Let's look at the fixtures ahead for this weekend. Brighton versus Manchester United. Crystal Palace versus Everton. West Brom versus Chelsea. Burnley, Southampton. Sheffield United, Leeds. Spurs, Newcastle. Man City, Leicester. West Ham, Wolves. Fulham, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So I'm going to pick categories, guys, from this ugly-looking bowl. And we are going to be making predictions. All of you, please sharpen your skills. Let's see if you can get at least one right for next weekend. The first one out, give me your answers in a rapid-fire manner. Which team will be at the bottom of the table next Monday? Okay? You know the order. Ram, Suhrith, and Azeem. Go for it. Ram.
I think West Brom.
I don't even need to ask you why. Sure.
Anyway, 30 beat.
Suhrith.
I mean, let me be different. I'll go with Fulham.
Very, very brave. Azeem.
I'm going to say West Brom as well.
Okay. Next one. Which team will have the most shots on target?
Chelsea.
All right. Suhrith.
Man City. Oh, sorry. I think I can't pick Man City because they play. Yeah, they play on Sunday.
They play on a Sunday. You're good. You're good.
Tottenham.
Tottenham are going to have the most shots on target just because they scored 5 goals against the Southampton high line that we dissected in detail.
4 shots.
From
No,
4
they're playing
shots.
Newcastle. They can't defend.
I hope Andy Carroll scores a hat-trick and stops it, man. And I have not even been giving my answers. Nobody's asking me. Wait, what is the first question, guys? I forgot completely. Let me first answer this. Which team will jump? Most shots on target.
Bottom of the league first.
No, more shots on target. I'm going to go with Leeds. Let's just do the standard operating procedure of giving Leeds to everything. What is the previous question? Bottom of the league. Can't be Leeds, of course. So I shall go with Fulham. And the next one is, guys, the third one. Which team will jump up the maximum number of places on the table?
I'm going to say Southampton.
So yeah, I mean, I'll go with Sheffield United.
I'm going to go with Southampton.
Excellent choices. And I think I'm going to go with Burnley. All right. Okay. Then last one, guys. You know the drill. The highest scoring game. Get me the game and the result.
This is a tough one. I'm going to say Manchester City versus Leicester. I think there'll be goals in it. So I'll go for a 3-2 again. This is the hill I'm dying on like last week. So I'll probably end up dying on it.
I've gone with City Leicester as well. I mean, Man City was Leicester City as well.
Welcome.
But I'm going 3-1 to Man City.
I'm going West Brom versus Chelsea, 5-0 to Chelsea.
I like you already.
Well, I'm going for a change. I'm going to do something that you shameless Manchester United fans are not doing. I'm picking Brighton versus Manchester United, and I'm going 4-2 to Brighton.
That'll be 0-0. I'm telling you now.
All right. With that, we move to the next segment, which is fantastic players and where to find them. Right, so this is the part of the show where we talk about FPL and satisfy all you people who've given enough of a fuck and stayed this long, because I know this is why you're here. And let's take a look at the leaderboard of mini league that we've started for this show. And we have at number 1, Mr. Ashwin PM with a team name called Cat Food and with points of 180. Well, that's quite a big achievement. When I look at the top 10, I would like to pick up the best name more than the best players, because all this is like temporary stuff. The best name goes to the number 1 at number 9, which is Dumil Kuppam Vawal. I really like such random ass names that you guys come up with. But more importantly, let's ask our fantastic panelists, so all these analysts and what else, editorial experts, where are you all at? Mr. Ram, go for it.
You don't want to know. I'm at 662. I'm not good at that.
That's a big improvement from last time, I must say.
Kind of. Yeah.
Suhrith, your smirk on your face is very evident. Go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not great at FPL either, but I'm at 50.
Was he the guy who did well at exams and then he was like, nah, I'm failing this one?
Exactly, that piece only. And Azeem, where are you? Nah?
Yeah, so I have not officially joined the league yet, so no comment.
So please follow me on social media, Azeem Banatwalla. I'm going to make use of the podcasts and
really, I don't follow you.
No, then you would have joined this FPL league by now. What is this?
Okay, sorry.
It's all good. We're at 180 points. Azeem, how many points do you have? That's the leader in our league.
I have some 130 or 125.
I think you should be somewhere around the 200, 300 mark. I'm at 250 as well. So let's get at the captain's pick for next week. Ram.
I am going to captain Raul Jimenez next week because Wolves, I fancy them scoring against West Ham, and if they score, he's likely to score. So, yeah.
Okay. Suhrith?
I don't know. I've probably Mo Salah against Arsenal. Yeah.
And Azeem?
I'm going with Harry Kane against Newcastle.
Okay, fantastic, guys. That was super duper fun. This episode was a lot of fun listening to the demise of such great clubs, and I hope this stays for long, and I hope we get to do this for long. And thanks, Ram, thanks, Suhrith, thanks, Azeem, for coming on and making this fun. And I'm going to leave you all with my captain's pick, which is Timo Werner.